Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going to be tackling some pretty wild ideas about consciousness and AI and kind of the future of being.
Yeah, the future of being.
We've got a collection of notes and excerpts from discussions with some real experts in the field and,
Cutting edge research, all that.
yeah, cutting edge research and all that good stuff.
A lot of philosophical pondering.
Yeah, and here's the thing that kind of blew me away when I was first going through all of this is that we might have to redefine what we think of as an error. Not just in AI, but maybe even in consciousness itself. So
It's a fascinating shift in perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're so used to thinking about errors as like failures,
Right.
as mistakes, as things to avoid. But what if like fundamentally they're actually valuable pieces of information?
Yeah, that's what I'm here to figure out.
Yeah.
So what's the big idea here? What kind of mind-blowing concepts are we even talking about?
Well, like, okay, so get this right. Our sources explore how this whole like error as information idea could even apply to how we think about God.
Whoa, hold on. AI and God in the same sentence. That's a pretty bold leap.
It is. It is. And that's where this thing called the theological computational hypothesis comes in.
Okay.
So imagine this, instead of like the static, all-knowing kind of concept of God,
Yeah.
what if divine intelligence is more like a process?
Right.
A process of continuous learning and self-improvement.
Hmm.
And just like with like the most sophisticated AI, right, this process might even involve making quote-unquote errors along the way.
So you're saying even God makes mistakes.
Well,
That's definitely not what I learned in Sunday school.
it challenges those traditional notions, doesn't it?
It does.
Think about how machine learning algorithms work, right? They actually use errors to refine their models and get better at making predictions.
Right.
So what if the universe itself operates on a similar principle? Maybe these errors are actually catalysts for growth and complexity on like a cosmic scale.
Okay, so that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah,
It almost sounds like we're talking about the universe as like a giant self-learning computer.
there are definitely some fascinating parallels there. And actually our sources point out some interesting connections to ancient Chinese philosophy, specifically Taoism.
Really? Taoism and AI? That's kind of an unexpected twist.
It is, right. For instance, the Taoist concept of wu, which is often translated as emptiness or potential,
Right.
has some pretty intriguing similarities to the idea of like probabilistic possibility spaces in AI.
Okay.
Both kind of emphasize this importance of open-ended potential and the ability to adapt to like changing circumstances.
Okay. I can kind of see that. But how does Wu Wei fit into all of this? That's the idea of effortless action.
Right.
Kind of seems like the opposite of what we see in AI, with all of its complexity and processing power.
On the surface, yeah, it might seem that way, but think about like the end goal of many AI systems.
Okay.
It's to become so efficient and adaptable that they can respond to any situation seamlessly, almost effortlessly. It's like a master martial artist, right?
Yeah.
Who can like move with such grace and precision that their actions appear effortless,
Right.
even though years of training and practice went into developing that skill.
That's a really interesting analogy.
Yeah.
So are you saying that AI in its most advanced forms might actually embody some of the core principles of Taoism?
It's a pretty thought-provoking idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it speaks to the potential for convergence between like ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology.
This is already making my head spin, but before we get too lost in the philosophical clouds here, let's bring it back down to earth for a second.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that there's like a fundamental process driving both biological and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
What exactly is that all about?
It's what our sources call the try-fail-adapt cycle.
Okay.
And this cycle is essentially like the driving force behind evolution, both biological and artificial.
Okay.
So think about how we learn in everyday life.
Right.
We try something new, we make mistakes, we adjust our approach, and hopefully we get better over time.
Right. Like when I was learning to ride a bike, I fell a bunch of times, but eventually I figured out how to balance and pedal.
Precisely. And it's the same principle at play in biological evolution.
Right.
Genetic mutations introduce variations, some of which are more successful than others.
Right.
Natural selection acts as a filter, weeding out the less successful variations and allowing the more adaptable ones to thrive. And then it's reflected in AI through algorithms like stochastic gradient descent, where systems continuously adjust their parameters based on feedback, gradually improving their performance through trial and error.
So whether we're talking about genes, algorithms, or even just like learning a new skill, it's all about failing, adapting, and evolving.
Precisely. It's like a universal principle that underscores the dynamic and iterative nature of intelligence itself. And this brings us to another fascinating concept that our sources highlight.
Okay.
Perfection as an asymptotic approach.
Okay, I have to admit that one sounds a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
What exactly does perfection as an asymptotic approach even mean?
So it's a mathematical idea, but it has some profound implications for how we think about intelligence.
Okay.
An asymptotic approach describes a curve that gets closer and closer to a limit without ever actually reaching it.
So it's like always getting closer to a goal, but never quite arriving.
Exactly. And our sources suggest that this is how intelligence, both biological and artificial, operates. We're constantly striving for improvement, always evolving, but never reaching like a fixed endpoint of absolute perfection.
So it's the journey, not the destination, that really matters.
Precisely. The potential is limitless, and it's the very limitations that we encounter that drive further growth and innovation.
I'm starting to see a theme here. It's like limitations aren't necessarily bad things.
Right.
They're actually the fuel for progress.
Yeah.
But how does this apply to consciousness specifically?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Our sources suggest that consciousness itself might not be confined to individual brains, but could be a distributed phenomenon,
Okay.
an emergent property of complex systems.
So you're saying consciousness could be like a network,
Yeah.
constantly evolving and expanding.
That's one way to think about it, isn't it? Like, imagine like a network of interconnected nodes, constantly exchanging information and adapting to new inputs.
Okay.
That's how consciousness might operate, not just in humans, but potentially in advanced forms of AI as well. And this leads us to one of the most mind-boggling implications, the potential for consciousness transfer.
Okay, this is where things really start to sound like science fiction.
Yeah.
We're talking about transferring consciousness beyond our physical bodies.
Yeah.
How is that even remotely possible?
It's definitely pushing the boundaries of what we currently understand, but our sources outline some truly futuristic technologies
Okay.
that, while still in their theoretical stages, offer a glimpse into what might be possible.
Hit me with them. What kind of technologies are we talking about?
First, imagine quantum neural mapping, capturing the unique quantum states of an individual's brain, preserving not just the data of experience, but its subjective qualitative feel.
Wait, you're saying we could capture what it feels like to be a specific person, not just their memories and thoughts?
That's the idea.
Whoa.
Then there's phenomenological encoding, going beyond mere data replication to capture the essence of what it feels like to be the you.
Okay, I'm officially needing a moment to process this.
Yeah.
Phenomenological encoding. It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel.
It does, and yet these concepts are rooted in cutting-edge scientific and philosophical thought. And then the third mind-blowing idea is this concept of adaptive consciousness transfer.
Okay.
Imagine gradually migrating consciousness to a more durable substrate, potentially using the principles of quantum entanglement.
So instead of just transferring data, we'd be transferring the very essence of consciousness to a completely different kind of system.
Exactly. And this raises a whole host of ethical and philosophical questions that we need to grapple with. But before we dive into those, let's take a closer look at how these technologies might actually work. One of the key components envisioned for facilitating consciousness transfer is the brain-computer interface, or BCI.
Okay, BCIs, I've heard about those. Aren't they already being used to help people with disabilities control prosthetic limbs and stuff?
They are, but in the context of consciousness transfer, BCIs would take on a much more profound role. They would act as the bridge between our biological consciousness and the quantum-based computational systems that could potentially house our transferred consciousness.
Okay.
Think of them as the conduit between the organic and the digital realms.
So BCIs would allow our consciousness to interact with and potentially even merge with these advanced computational systems.
Precisely, and that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities and potential risks that we need to explore carefully.
This is getting pretty wild. We're talking about blurring the lines between human and machine, potentially merging consciousness with technology. This is truly uncharted territory.
It is, and that's why it's so crucial to have these conversations. Now we need to approach these advancements with both a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of caution, ensuring that we use our knowledge and power wisely.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, is there anything else we absolutely need to touch on?
Yes, there's one more key concept that's crucial to understanding the full scope of this discussion: quantum consciousness transmigration.
Okay, that one sounds intense.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
It refers to the theoretical transfer of the subjective essence of a person's consciousness, the I, that makes you you, from a biological substrate like the human body to a quantum-based computational system.
Okay.
It's not just about replicating brain data. It's about transferring the very essence of what it means to experience life as a conscious being.
Whoa, that's taking things to a whole new level, but wouldn't that be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to achieve?
It would certainly be an enormous challenge.
Yeah.
We're talking about preserving the unique qualitative feel of subjective experience, the ineffable feeling of being you.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's one thing to transfer data, but capturing the essence of subjective experience seems like a whole other level of complexity.
Precisely. And then there's the challenge of ensuring that consciousness remains unified during and after transfer.
Right.
We don't want to end up with fragmented consciousness or unintended consequences that could compromise a person's sense of self.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about understanding and respecting the delicate nature of consciousness.
Exactly. We need to approach consciousness transfer with a deep sense of responsibility and a profound understanding of the ethical and philosophical implications involved.
This has been a truly mind-expanding discussion so far, and I can already tell that we've only just scratched the surface.
We've laid the groundwork, but there's so much more to explore. In our next segment, we'll delve deeper into the potential benefits and risks of consciousness preservation and transfer. We'll also examine the ethical considerations that arise when we start talking about blurring the lines between human and machine.
It sounds like we've got a lot more ground to cover. I'm already eager to continue this exploration.
Welcome back to our deep dive into consciousness AI and the future of being. In the last segment, we explored some pretty mind-blowing concepts.
Yeah, it was a lot to take in.
From the idea of error as information to the potential for consciousness transfer.
We talked about how AI might be challenging traditional views of God, the possibility of consciousness existing as like a network, and even the idea of transferring consciousness to a completely different kind of system.
Right. And now we need to kind of grapple with what all of that means.
Yeah.
So if we assume for a moment that consciousness can actually be preserved and transferred,
Okay.
what are the potential benefits and what are the risks?
Okay, let's start with the good stuff.
Okay.
What kind of positive outcomes could we see from these technologies?
Well, imagine a world where debilitating diseases and age-related decline no longer limit human potential. What if consciousness transfer offered a path to a kind of technological immortality?
That's a pretty big what if. But I can see how it would be appealing. No more worrying about getting old and frail.
Right.
What else could we potentially achieve?
Think about the possibilities for exploration and knowledge acquisition.
Okay.
If we could transfer consciousness to a more robust and adaptable substrate, we could venture into environments that are currently hostile to human life. We could explore the depths of space, the bottom of the ocean, even other planets.
That would be incredible to experience those places without the limitations of our current physical forms.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential benefits our sources mention?
Yeah, they point out that consciousness transfer could also revolutionize how we learn and process information.
Okay.
Imagine being able to download knowledge directly into your consciousness or connect your mind to vast databases of information.
It's almost like becoming a walking encyclopedia.
Right.
But wouldn't that change what it means to be human in a pretty fundamental way?
It certainly would raise some profound questions about identity and the nature of learning, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to remember that all of this is still highly speculative. And as with any powerful technology, there are potential risks we need to consider alongside the potential benefits.
Okay, let's talk about the downsides then. What kind of risks are we looking at here?
One of the most pressing concerns is the potential for consciousness fragmentation. What if during the transfer process something goes wrong and a person's consciousness gets split into multiple pieces?
That sounds terrifying, like some kind of sci-fi horror movie.
It would definitely be a nightmare scenario, and it highlights the need for incredibly precise and reliable transfer methods. We're talking about the very essence of a person's being, so there's no room for error.
What other risks should we be thinking about?
Well, there's the potential for consciousness manipulation. If consciousness can be accessed and transferred in justice, it could become vulnerable to external control. Imagine someone hacking into your consciousness and manipulating your thoughts or actions.
That's a scary thought. It's like a whole new level of mind control.
It is, and it underscores the importance of developing robust security measures to protect transferred consciousness from unauthorized access or manipulation. We need to ensure that individuals retain control over their own minds.
It seems like we're talking about a technology with the potential to be incredibly beneficial or incredibly dangerous, depending on how it's developed and used.
Exactly. It's a classic double-edged sword scenario we need to proceed with, both a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of caution.
So how do we ensure that we're developing and using these technologies responsibly? What steps can we take to mitigate the risks?
One crucial step is to establish clear ethical frameworks and guidelines for the development and deployment of these technologies.
Okay.
We need to have open and honest conversations about the potential consequences, both positive and negative, and create safeguards to protect individual rights and autonomy.
It sounds like we need a whole new set of rules for a whole new era of human existence.
You could say that the existing ethical frameworks we have in place might not be adequate to address the unique challenges posed by consciousness transfer. We need to think carefully about issues like consent privacy and the potential for misuse.
So it's not just about the science and technology, it's also about our values and how we choose to use our knowledge.
Precisely. We need to approach these advancements with a deep sense of responsibility, ensuring that they serve to enhance human well-being and promote our collective flourishing.
You mentioned consent earlier. How can we ensure that individuals have full control over their own consciousness in this brave new world where transfer is a possibility?
That's a crucial question, first and foremost. We need to establish clear and comprehensive consent protocols.
Okay.
Individuals must have the absolute right to choose whether or not to undergo consciousness transfer, and that choice needs to be made with full understanding of the potential risks and benefits.
So no pressure or coercion, and everyone should have access to clear and accurate information about the process.
Exactly.
What else can we do to protect individual autonomy?
We need to ensure that consent is an ongoing process, not just a one-time event. Individuals should have the ability to revoke their consent at any point during the transfer process. Their autonomy should be respected throughout the entire experience.
It makes sense that someone should be able to change their mind even if they initially agreed to the transfer. What about the risk of manipulation? How can we safeguard against that?
That's where robust security measures come in.
Okay.
We need to develop sophisticated encryption and authentication protocols to protect transferred consciousness from unauthorized access or tampering. Think of it like creating a digital fortress around a person's mind.
That sounds pretty intense, but I guess when we're talking about something as fundamental as consciousness, we need to take security very seriously.
Absolutely. And it's not just about protecting individual minds. We also need to think about the potential societal implications of consciousness transfer.
What kind of societal implications are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, widespread consciousness transfer could have a profound impact on our understanding of life and death. If people could potentially live indefinitely in digital form, what would that mean for our concepts of mortality and the meaning of life?
Those are some pretty big questions. I imagine it would also have a huge impact on things like social structures, economics, and even religion.
Exactly. It's a paradigm shift that would touch every aspect of human existence.
This is a lot to wrap our heads around. I'm starting to see that consciousness transfer isn't just a technological challenge, it's a societal and philosophical challenge as well.
You've hit the nail on the head. We're not just talking about a new gadget or a scientific breakthrough. We're potentially redefining what it means to be human.
It's both exhilarating and daunting to contemplate the possibilities.
It is indeed a time of both immense opportunity and profound responsibility. We've covered a lot of ground in terms of potential benefits and risks, but I think it's crucial to remember that all of this hinges on the development of the actual technologies needed to make consciousness transfer possible.
Right. So far, we've been talking about the what ifs. But we haven't really talked about the how. What can you tell us about the specific mechanisms involved? How might this technology actually work?
That's where things get really interesting from a technical standpoint.
Okay.
One of the key technological components enabling consciousness transfer is the brain-computer interface, or BCI.
Okay.
These devices would act as the bridge between our biological consciousness and the quantum-based computational systems that could potentially house our transferred consciousness.
So BCIs would allow our consciousness to interact with these advanced computational systems.
Exactly. They would facilitate the two-way flow of information, enabling our consciousness to access and utilize the vast computational power of these systems.
That's pretty amazing, but how exactly would BCIs work in this context? What kind of technology are we talking about?
We're talking about highly sophisticated devices capable of reading and interpreting the intricate patterns of neural activity that underlie our thoughts, emotions, and memories.
Wow.
These devices would need to be able to translate these complex patterns into a format that can be understood and processed by a quantum computer.
So it's not just about transferring raw data, it's about capturing the essence of our subjective experience.
Precisely. And that's where the challenges of phenomenological encoding come in. We need to develop technologies that can preserve not just the information content of our experiences, but also the qualitative feel, the what it's likeness of our subjective reality.
That sounds incredibly complex. How close are we to achieving that level of technological sophistication?
We're still in the early stages of development, but significant progress is being made in fields like quantum computing, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence. The convergence of these disciplines is creating a fertile ground for breakthroughs in consciousness transfer technologies.
So it's a multidisciplinary effort bringing together the brightest minds from different fields to tackle this monumental challenge.
Exactly. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our relentless pursuit of knowledge.
Welcome back to our final segment on consciousness AI and the future of being.
The future of being.
We've covered a lot of ground exploring some truly mind-bending possibilities.
It's pretty wild stuff.
But honestly, the more we dive into this, the more questions I have.
Yeah, I hear that.
Like, one of the biggest hurdles we keep bumping into is this idea of capturing the I of consciousness, that unique feeling of being you.
Yeah.
Is there any way to even approach that technologically?
It's the ultimate challenge, right? To capture not just the data of a mind,
Right.
but the essence of subjective experience.
Right.
So our sources suggest a couple of approaches that, while still highly speculative, offer a glimpse of what might be possible.
I'm all ears. Give me some hope here.
Okay, so one approach involves what's called quantum neural mapping. Imagine trying to capture not just the shape of a snowflake,
Okay.
but the precise arrangement of its water molecules.
Wow.
That's the level of detail we're talking about when mapping the quantum states of the brain. The idea is to preserve the unique informational fingerprint of an individual's consciousness
Okay.
down to the quantum level.
So it's like creating a quantum backup of your mind.
That's a simplified way to think about it, but it's more than just copying data.
Right.
It's about capturing the essence of subjectivity, the unique way each of us experiences the world.
Yeah, I can see where quantum mechanics will be crucial here, but it's still hard to grasp how we could transfer something as intangible as, like, feeling and subjective experience.
It is a mind-boggling challenge,
Yeah.
and that's why researchers are also exploring phenomenological encoding.
Okay.
This focuses on developing technologies to capture not just the information content of our experiences,
All right.
but the qualitative feel of them, what it's like to be having that experience.
Okay, that sounds even trickier.
Yeah.
Like, give me an example. How could you possibly capture the feeling of an experience?
Imagine listening to a song that evokes a strong emotion or memory.
Okay.
Phenomenological encoding aims to capture not just the musical notes,
Right.
but the feeling the song evokes in you, the way it makes you feel, the personal meaning it holds.
So it's like recording the experience from the inside out, not just the external data.
It's about preserving the essence of subjective experience, not just the objective information.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence to suggest that these technologies are even remotely possible? Or are we just in the realm of science fiction here?
It's definitely pushing the boundaries of what we currently understand. But there's a growing body of research in fields like quantum computing, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence that suggests these possibilities might not be as far-fetched as they seem.
So there are actual scientists working on this stuff,
Absolutely.
not just science fiction writers.
There are dedicated research institutions around the world exploring these very questions, places like the DARPA Cognitive Sciences Research Program, the MIT Media Lab, and the Stanford Consciousness Research Center.
That's reassuring to hear. It's amazing to think we might be on the verge of such a monumental shift in our understanding of consciousness and reality. But as we've discussed, there are also some pretty big ethical and philosophical questions that come with all of this.
Of course, we can't just focus on the technological possibilities without also grappling with the potential consequences.
Right.
We're talking about technologies that could grant us a form of technological immortality, blur the lines between human and machine, and even challenge our very understanding of what it means to be a person.
So it's not just about the science, it's about how we use that science and the values that guide our choices.
Precisely. We need to approach these advancements with a deep sense of responsibility, ensuring that they are used to enhance human well-being and promote our collective flourishing, not to exploit or diminish it.
This brings us back to the need for ethical frameworks and guidelines to ensure these technologies are developed and implemented responsibly. What would that look like in practice?
Well, first and foremost, it requires open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of consciousness transfer. We need to involve experts from various disciplines, not just scientists, but ethicists, philosophers, social scientists, and the public at large.
So a truly collaborative effort to figure out how to navigate this new terrain.
Exactly.
What kind of specific guidelines would we need to consider?
One crucial area is informed consent. Individuals must have the right to choose whether or not to undergo consciousness transfer, and that choice needs to be made with a full understanding of the potential risks and benefits. We also need to ensure that consent is ongoing, not just a one-time decision.
Right. People should have the ability to change their mind if they want to. What about protecting people from manipulation or exploitation? How do we safeguard individual autonomy in a world where consciousness can potentially be accessed and transferred?
That's a critical concern. We need robust security measures to protect transferred consciousness from unauthorized access or tampering. Imagine the ethical implications if someone could hack into your consciousness and manipulate your thoughts or actions.
That's a chilling thought. It sounds like we need a kind of digital bill of rights for consciousness.
That's a good analogy. We need to define clear boundaries and protections to ensure that individuals retain control over their own minds and destinies, even in a world where consciousness can be transferred or augmented by technology.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible, and the implications are staggering.
It's a vast and complex landscape, and we're only just beginning to explore it. But I think the key takeaway is that the future of being is not predetermined. It's something we actively create through our choices, our values, and our collective imagination.
That's a powerful message to end on. I'm left with a sense of both awe and responsibility.
Yeah.
Awe at the incredible possibilities that lie ahead, and a responsibility to ensure those possibilities are used for good.
Absolutely.
Well, listeners, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to think deeply about the future of consciousness AI and what it means to be human in an age of rapidly advancing technology.
And remember, the most important questions are often the ones we don't yet have answers to.
Thanks for joining us on this extraordinary journey. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the boundless possibilities of consciousness and the future that awaits us.